Folks, something else that's going to come up besides national reciprocity is the Hearing Protection Act. We got a group of doctors who have stepped in the gap on this, and Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. When you hear the name of the group, you don't know which way this is going to fall. And then you read their research. See, their name doesn't give any indication of what they're saying or what they're doing, but they're doing some research. These are specialists. They're doing research on how the sound of gunfire affects hearing. And they're researching what would protect hearing the best if you are an avid shooter or a frequent shooter. And so we're gonna be fortunate to have the leader of that group, the membership director of that group, on with us in the coming segment. And so I don't want to take any of his thunder. We'll talk to him and let him explain it. But these are two things coming up, folks, and I've been trying to stress them for a while. We have the national reciprocity, which is makes your concealed carry license valid in every state. And we have the Hearing Protection Act, which will deregulate suppressors. It doesn't suddenly make suppressors legal. They're already legal in 42 states. Hard to become much more legal than that, right? So this doesn't legalize them. It makes them easier to acquire for law-abiding citizens. And why should they be easy to acquire for law-abiding citizens? They're not firearms. They're just a firearms accessory. But as it turns out, they're a firearms accessory that is good for you, actually good for your hearing. And that's what we're going to hear after this break. Welcome back to Bullets with AWR Hawkins, the Breitbart News Podcast. This is our third segment, and we're with Dr. John Edeen. He is a pediatric orthopedic surgeon. Say that 3 times fast. Pediatric orthopedic surgeon. He is also, what's really important for what we're talking about here, he is the membership director of Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. I was fortunate to bump into him at the NRA annual meetings in Atlanta, and we're fortunate that he took some time to be on with us for this segment. So, Dr. Edeen, great to have you on, and thanks for joining us.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's great to talk to your audience.
All right. You know, your group, we think about the Hearing Protection Act. That's what our conversation revolved around at the NRA annual meetings when you and I spoke. And I've covered your works group, but nothing is going to do as much as you right now giving a voice to it. I know that Gabby Giffords and her gun control group say that we should just use earplugs and ear muffs, that those are sufficient. That's all we need, that the claim that suppressors would be good for hearing is bogus. That's their argument. So what do the Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership say to that?
Well, our organization wrote a position paper in favor of the firearm suppressor to prevent hearing loss, and it was done by 4 ear, nose, and throat surgeons, one of whom was Tim Wheeler, who was an ear, nose, and throat surgeon and the founder of Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. 2 of those people were also otologists, which are doctors that deal with the neurologic portion of the hearing process. So we have 4 recognized experts putting this paper together. And, we talk about the problem of noise-induced hearing loss and that it is a true public health problem, other than what Bloomberg's group would tell you that, guns themselves are a public health problem. This is a public health problem. And noise-induced hearing loss is permanent and untreatable. So once you damage your hearing enough to cause hearing loss, there's no way that right now we can't fix it. Let's put it that way. The nerve elements are damaged in your cranial nerve, and you lose the ability to hear at those levels. Prevention is the only possible intervention. And, among veterans, it's the highest, most frequent cause of disability. I'm a Navy veteran, and I was on a ship, and we had lots of, engine noise and pumps and fans and aircraft, And those things all are very loud. In fact, I was in charge of the hearing protection portion of the health program because I was the ship's medical officer. So this is a significant issue, and a lot of people who are injured by gunshot noise aren't the shooters. It's actually the person standing nearby that gets hit with the noise and the blast. So, most of us, when we shoot, we put our earmuffs on. But then all of a sudden we put all this stuff on and we can't hear anything. So now it becomes a danger of not being able to respond to commands. In a training situation, it's very important for the student to be able to hear what the instructor is saying. Or if there's a safety issue, we have to, cease fire. Well, if you're wearing plugs and muffs, you may not be able to hear those instructions.
Right. Well,
so that's. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say you've said so many things that the listeners need to think about. Like, for instance, that the hearing loss that results from the damage done by the sound of gunfire is irreversible. I think that's important. It's irreversible. Number two, you talk about how that the damage is not just for the shooter, but for those watching. And the way you worded it, it's especially for those watching. That's where the danger lies, because they're the ones that catch that wave coming. When that gunfire sounds, they catch that sound wave, that sharp sound wave. And my question to you is, what does a suppressor do that would be better than the ears? Like, I hear you say, if I have earplugs, I might not hear the commands. What does the suppressor allow me to do that having earmuffs and earplugs will not allow me to do?
Right. Well, first of all, that blast that you're talking about, that concussion, causes 1,000 times more damage than the actual perceptible noise. We've all been in a range, and a guy next to us is shooting a .357 or a .44 Magnum, and you actually feel the concussion, or a rifle for that matter. You feel that concussion. If you're unprotected and that concussion hits you, that's doing a majority of the damage. So what a suppressor does is puts that energy wave through a bunch of baffles. And it's just like your automobile or motorcycle or lawnmower muffler. It breaks up that blast wave so you don't get that incredible slap in the face, or in this case in your eardrum, which causes the little bones in there to move, which vibrates a window, which causes this huge fluid wave to go through your cochlea, which is kind of a snail-shaped organ that has all the little sensory hair cells. The sensory hair cells are what gets damaged from that blast or shock wave. So that's why suppressors are better, because they take away that 1,000 times more damaging shock wave to the ear.
That's absolutely incredible. Now tell me this. A lot of states have made suppressors legal for hunting. I mean, and this is another thing. The left argues as if suppressors right now are illegal and they're suddenly going to be legal. Well, 42 states, they're legal right now. So it's not like suppressors are even the new kid on the block. They've been legal for a long time. My question is, what do you think we would see? You may not have done this work. This may be a project you are getting ready to do. But have you all looked at the world as it would be if we had suppressors more widely owned? I mean, is there an example somewhere in the world where you can go see how much better things would be for hearing, or is that still something to do in the future?
No, certainly in places like England, if you are a hunter, you are required to have a suppressor. You're considered an ignorant barbarian if you're shooting unsuppressed weapons. It's impolite. And you can buy a suppressor in a hardware store. Okay, now you have a hard time getting the firearm, but once you get your firearm, you can walk to a hardware store and buy a suppressor. There's not all of this, extra paperwork. I just did an Appleseed shoot this weekend. I ran my shoot with a suppressed .22 caliber rifle the whole time. It's quite polite, and actually it reduces recoil, and it actually makes you more accurate shooter.
Right.
So they're out there. We use them all the time in a lot of the states where they're legal. I use them for hunting, for shooting hogs. A 300 blackout with a 30 caliber suppressor. it decreases the amount of noise signature enough that the hogs have a little bit hard time with the directionality, I think. But, it's not, what Hollywood tells us, which is, you shoot your gun and it goes, piff, 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 piff. It's this little thunk.
That's just not realistic.
What it does is reduces the decibel level from 170 decibels to 130 decibels or 120 decibels, which is actually not immediately ear damaging. 140 decibels is the level that we look at. And the other thing is that repetitive exposure to lesser decibels of noise, say 90 or 100, over time can cause damage too. So it's not just a single one loud bang, but it's the multiple exposures to lesser levels of noise that can also cause hearing damage.
That's incredible. I'm telling you, John, having you on, your insight, it's incredible. We're going to push this. And the Hearing Protection Act to me just seems like a gimme. I mean, it's just like the benefits, especially now we talk to you. You're not a political office holder. You're a doctor. You're a surgeon. You understand these things. Your language makes that clear. It just seems to me that this act ought to be a shoe-in, ought to be a gimme because of the literal health benefits. I mean, that's really my last question to you. Is that basically where you stand on it as well?
Absolutely. If a firearm were in any industrial environment, OSHA would be requiring them to have a suppressor. Just like any other place, any other workplace, when you have noisy machinery and stuff like that, people are required to have hearing protection, dampening devices, whatever they can do to reduce that hearing problem. And this is all Hollywood. This was back in the 1930s with the gangsters in Chicago. You watch the movies and these guys screw these silencers on and they silence. Well, they're not really silencers, they're suppressors. They're a gun muffler. Right. They reduce the noise, but it's still loud.
Right.
If you ever stood next to somebody shooting even a .22 caliber pistol with it, you hear a snap. You hear the pop, and it's loud, but it's not as loud as if you do without it.
Right.
If you have a rifle with a suppressor, it significantly decreases. Like a 30 caliber rifle of some sort, 30-06. You're going to notice a significant difference in that blast wave decreasing, and it's still noisy. It's still 130 decibels, which is pretty darn loud. It's like somebody beeping a horn right while you're standing right next to the car.
Right.
And that's the kind of noise. So it doesn't make it silent. It just decreases the amount of decibels by 20 to 30 decibels.
Well, John, thanks again. Thanks for being with us, and I look forward to watching this bill go through. I hope they have you somewhere to testify on behalf of it. But this is Bullets with AWR Hawkins. Thank y'all for joining us.